Hi everyone, I'm Colleen Nelson and I'm going to be talking about my book, The Life and Deaths of Frankie D. It's out in April with Dundurn. So if you've ever read Erin Morgenstern's The Midnight Circus, then you'll understand the vibe of this book. I love the magical mood that Erin created in her book. It completely transported me. So I've tried to find a comparable book that I could use for Frankie. The closest I can come up with is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. So it definitely has like that creepy vibe to it. The Life and Death of Frankie D, it alternates between two storylines. In the present, we've got Frankie Doe, who was found abandoned in an alley as a child, and she's got no memory of her family. In fact, the only clue about who she might be is a skin disorder that she has, and it's given her this very dry, reptilian-like skin. The other storyline is Alligator Girls, and that takes place about 100 years ago. She is a performer at Monsieur Duval's traveling circus, which is really like a sideshow. And Frankie, in the present, starts to have dreams of Alligator's life, and she's trying to figure out how the two of them are connected. She also starts to realize that the performers from the past aren't as dead as they should be.
Hi, my name is Alisha Sevigny. I'm a young adult and middle grade author, and I'd like to introduce my new series, Secrets of the Sands. So Secrets of the Sands is an adventure series set in ancient Egypt during the Second Intermediate Period, which is kind of a lesser known era of ancient Egypt's illustrious past. The first book, The Lost Scroll of the Physician, features a real-life artifact called the Edwin Smith Medical Papyrus, which you can actually see in the New York Academy of Medicine today. And it looks at the history of scribes and healers and medicine in ancient Egypt, which was quite impressive for its time. The book is full of action and mystery and features strong sibling relationships, as well as focuses on STEAM. And the main character, Sesha and her friends are healers and scribes. And it also deals with key themes such as grief and loss, what it means to be a family, and believing in yourself. It has wide appeal for all genders and ages, with a young Indiana Jones meets the Mummy vibe, and is perfect for fans of Rick Riordan and Chris Colfer's Land of Stories. Not only is it action-packed, but there was a ton of research involved. I was fortunate enough to receive a grant from the Ontario Arts Council, and even though I never wanted it to feel educational, even though it is, reviewers have said its immersive setting really makes the reader feel like they are back in ancient Egypt. I sometimes like to compare it to Outlander for kids set in ancient Egypt without the time travel.
Hey, did you hear about the teenagers who brought down a bear poaching ring in northern British Columbia using their drones? I'm Pam Withers, and that's the gist of my 21st young adult adventure novel, which mixes outdoor adventure, drone flying, and wildlife conservation. I'm kind of a strange mix-up of Gary Paulson and Deborah Ellis. I'm 90% outdoor adventure and 10% sneaking in some social justice issues. My influencers and people that my readers probably also like are Farley Mowat, Jack London, Will Hobbs, Watt Key, David Almond, Ben Mickelson, but also Sharon McKay and Deborah Ellis.
I love reading action scenes. It's a lot easier to read one than to write one. And for sure in this story, there is a lot of action because Frankie has to piece together all these different parts of herself, but also of Alligator Girl's past. So she comes face to face with the villain of the story towards the end of the book, and at this point she's figured out a lot about who the performers are and how she's connected to them. But there was a lot of moving pieces in this particular scene. So there's a raging fire for one, and there's multiple characters who are all confronting each other, and then there's also the pesky problem of one of them wanting Frankie dead. So of all the scenes in the book, this one was rewritten the most. The action had to be believable, or as believable as possible when we're dealing with the undead. And I kept restaging the scene and acting out all the parts myself so that I could make sure that everything was realistic. So I had to be thinking like, okay, whose hand would the knife be visible in? And is the fire raging at this point, or is it just sort of smoky in the room? What is Frankie seeing as she's lying on the ground? So honestly, the best part about writing an action scene for me is finishing it. But often they stick in my head and I keep coming back to them because they are such pivotal moments for the reader and I want them to be just right. So I like to visualize the scene so that I can imagine what's going on, and I think about choreographing the writing so that the reader can see exactly what I'm seeing as I think about it. And I'm always conscious of keeping the story moving for my readers, and the best way to do that is to get the characters moving.
I love writing action scenes. I'm a big fan of adventure novels, and I'd say these first two books, The Lost Scroll, The Physician, and The Desert Prince, are pretty action-packed. It's hard to pick just one scene, of course, but probably one of my favorites from this scene is the mummification scene, which gets pretty juicy, if you know what I mean. Kids will love it, as well as the hippo hunt scene. And then one of my favorite scenes from The Desert Prince, well actually this is pretty much action the whole way through, both of them are, but one of my favorite scenes from The Desert Prince is when they're trekking through the desert in search of a mysterious oasis led by a Hyksos spy, and they encounter some quicksand, which required a lot of fun research as Sesha and her friends have to try to free her from the quicksand. So if you ever get stuck in quicksand, I'm your girl.
While perched on a branch high up a tree in the forest, the protagonist steers his drone over a derelict cannery building nearby. He suspects its headquarters for a bear poaching operation. Suddenly, a swarm of mini drones comes after his. He has to dodge them and outrace them in order to keep himself from being found. In another scene, he tries to stop a bear from stepping into a leg trap by buzzing him with a drone. And in another scene, his drone has to outrun the bad guys' drones to save both himself and the illegally caged bears. Do I like writing action scenes? What a silly question! Basically, all my novels are one action scene after another. I enjoy high-action writing because I'm kind of a high-action girl. I kayaked the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon when I was 21 years old. I misspent my youth as a river raft guide, a whitewater kayak racer, and founder of a summer camp for teens for 6 years. That was hard work. I married the Canadian kayak coach, and I was kayaking the day before my son was born. I had to wear an extra large spray deck over my tummy that day.
So thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you check out The Life and Death of Frankie D. Thank you.
I love keeping readers engaged and learning even when they don't realize they are, and have no doubt that students, teachers, and librarians will love the series, which was also a CCBC Best Books for Kids and Teen Pick. The third book, tentatively titled The Oracle of Avaris, is going into edits and set to come out January 2022. Thank you all for everything you do. Please don't hesitate to contact me if you'd like to set up a school visit. And there's also a reader's guide for educators. I think Dundurn is also coming out with a second one. And I hope you enjoy Secrets of the Sun.
I think that I come by my adventure gene legitimately. My parents lived above the Arctic Circle, where my mother, wearing a wolverine-lined and beaded parka, would travel by dog sled across the frozen Kayakuk River in order to deliver babies while expecting me. My 21 young adult novels are contemporary, high-action outdoor sports and adventure, particularly popular with teenage boys. They're also entirely appropriate for middle grade. I don't do sex or violence because my characters are too busy surviving. Enjoy Drone Chase.